Welcome to the Rick Helps Real Estate Show, our Sunday night weekly roundup. Just let you know what's going on in Arizona. Not that much changes in a week, but sometimes some numbers crop up and you go, wow, that's interesting. So I like to kind of just buzz through and take a look at it. And the first thing that we see this week is we had interest rates averaging about 6.45 through most of the week. And then on Friday, it came down to 6.29. Now, this is an average. It's based on a survey of lenders. If you're looking for a mortgage, it's always best, I think, to work with a mortgage broker and have them shop the right product for you. You can go to some of these online ones and they'll give you a number, but they never really give you the fees or tell you what it's going to cost to get you to that rate. And so I just highly recommend using a mortgage broker and shopping around looking for a decent rate. But just to kind of let you know where the market's headed, we did decline from 6.45 to 6.29. Not a huge drop, but it was because of the jobs report. You know, jobs are bad, and according to the data, but then we're looking at these jobs report and when they revise them every 3 months. So even when it comes out good, they revise it and it all of a sudden is bad. So who knows? And that's kind of the market we're in right now, is who knows? If the job market numbers are slow, then the odds of the central bank lowering rates go up. And so there's a meeting here this month on whether or not they're going to go down 0.25 or 0.50. And right now, the markets, they're kind of cooking in a 0.50 reduction. So now the day that the central bank lowers rates, and I say this all the time, you're probably not going to see any changes in mortgage rates. They happen because of 10-year treasuries in anticipation of what the central bank might do. So what's it doing with our active listings? Well, you can see here that they went up just a little bit, but the numbers will come out next week. They'll be down slightly, and that's just because of Labor Day. Labor Day weekend sales are slow. You can see on my chart here, if I'm sharing this, let me roll it over so you can see it. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? So you can see this yellow. Boy, that's giving me a fit here. There we go. The yellow bar here is the number of new listings that have come on, and the black line is number of new contracts for the 7-day average. And you can see what happens on holiday weeks. They both just, boom, go down. The yellow area gets a little larger at the end of the month or on the first of the month because of expired listings. We average about 250 expired listings on a weekly basis. And then the first of the month comes on and everybody writes all their listing agreements based on the calendar. And so it expired on August 31st. And lo and behold, September 1st, we have 850 expired listings. So that brings the number of homes on the market down. Then we start creeping back up. Canceled listings, not so much this past week. It's kind of hanging in where it's been. Now, the interesting thing is, again, here, and I think this is, again, seasonal because you kind of see it. Notice how our average list price per square foot for active listings has started to come up a little bit and then flatten. And they're larger than 2022. That makes sense, but we are still lower than 2024. And that's where we want to be if you have any hopes of selling your home in this market. But it's starting to come up, but it always comes up as we approach the fall market. People that were holding back on listing their homes are starting to put them back on ever so slowly. And some of the higher end homes that took their listing off for the summer are coming back. And so that's what affects these numbers. It doesn't mean that overall people are asking more for their homes. This is an average, and it's showing that there's some more higher end homes coming to market. Here's a snapshot by city here, and I've got Peoria. And so you can see that the supply index has got it kind of in the balance zone, yellow, but the market index is in red and the demand index is red. So the market index is a measurement between supply and demand, and that's what real estate's all about. So you can see demand is a little low there, a little tepid at 81.5. So you consider that a balanced to buyer's market up in Peoria, where there is a lot of competition with new builds. You can see the same situation here in Buckeye, only their supply is, according to this, very red, and their market index is 51.2, and their demand index is 92.4. In other words, a balanced market is about 100 as an index, and they're down here at 51. So, and there's a lot of supply. That's why it's in red. You can see here Chandler Chandler's pretty much green on all fronts except for demand. It's sitting here at 75.8 and a market index of 127.1. And what we're seeing is if you price right, which is the challenge of the day, is trying to determine what that price is. And you've heard me say before, it ain't Zillow. There isn't any online home valuation tool that you can count on. And I know people are starting to even go to AI, going to Chat GPT. That's even worse. You got to have an agent spend some time on the multiple listing service, going through the house, you telling them what you have in your house, because these online aggregators, they don't see your kitchen. They don't know you remodeled your bathroom. So they're not very dependable. It kind of gives you a rough idea, but just try something. Go to realtor.com, go to Redfin, go to Zillow, go to any of those that you see. You're going to get a wildly different number each time you click on it. Most people go, oh, I'm going to pick this one. That's the highest price. Well, that's not how you're going to sell your house in this market. And we've seen that time and time again. Here's what we're seeing in expired listings. Look how it's spiked up this year. We're at 4,328 for a year-to-date total. That's expired listings. Here's expired listings by month, though. And this really shows the story of what happens. These big spikes up, this is the end of December. So after December 31st, boom, all the expireds come up. People wrote listing contracts good for 3 months, 6 months, or a year, and they always expire. And then in January, we start getting more listings. So we get this huge number of expired listings, but then they start coming back on. Not all of them. That's called back on market. But in June, we had almost as many expired listings at the end of June, or the 1st of June, than we did in December. And that's very unusual. That tells you that the people that priced their homes in January, February, or March priced them too high, and they sat there and they let the listing expire. That is very unusual for June. You don't see any other expired listings around here that come close to what we see at the end of the year. Now, we're sitting here at 788 for the month so far. And here's listings expired weekly. Again, boom. That's the end of the month. So it's a wild market when you look at that. What it tells you is simply that, a lot of people were trying to sell their homes and they didn't have any luck at it. And they are looking at the price and they go, well, that didn't work. Let's take it off. Now, we had a video discussion with Pat and Jackie the other day saying, do you think they're coming back? If they're trying to sell in 2025 and it didn't work, when do you think they're going to come back? And I think the consensus is, well, it's going to be a while. They're going to have to see a big change. Pat correctly predicted that rates were probably going to get down in the 6.2 range, and he came out at 6.29, so he was feeling pretty good about that. Said there's still some room on the downside, but we still have an affordability issue. So we're just kind of staying right there. We're not tumbling, and prices aren't flying off the roof here. So here's our chart here showing the Cromford Index by city. Now, if you want to see this in more detail, there's a link down below to sign up for my newsletter. It comes out Monday morning at 7 a.m. Sign up tonight. You'll see it in your inbox, and you'll see this information in more detail along with the commentary and along with commentary on mortgage rates, some other market detailed reports. I've kind of added a bunch of stuff to it. It's worth it. I think it's worth it. Do you? So here we are sitting at Paradise Valley. They kind of went down 7%. Doesn't really mean anything. Fountain Hill's up 31% versus last week. And you get down the bottom here, and Maricopa and Buckeye are the ones that are really having a hard time if you are a seller, but buyers are loving Buckeye and Maricopa. How do you compete with the new builds? Well, having a pool helps. The cost of building a pool right now it's over $100,000. If you've already got a swimming pool, you're competing quite well with the builders. Chances are you probably have a bigger lot too. But people like those brand new homes. They don't like the small lots. So if you've got a larger lot, that's going to work in your favor. We've seen some homes get listed and sit for like 80 days and boom, all of a sudden get a buyer. They've lowered the price and lo and behold, the buyers come out of the woodwork. The buyers are out there. You'll see the comments saying it's really dead. Well, it's slow. We're 20 2,700 contracts a week is considered slow. It's considered historically slow. So you got to wonder, well, if it's this slow, how come prices haven't crashed? Well, because inventory hasn't exceeded what we consider normal, which is about 27,000. We're in the 23,700 range now. Prices aren't going to crash until that number goes way, way up. Now, you can watch in the comment section, crash, baby, crash. There's a lot of people wanting that, hoping for it, and planning on it. And there just isn't any indication in the numbers that I see right now that shows that that's coming anytime soon. I even read an article this morning about the big generational shift. Old people, guys like me that eventually are going to be in their 80s and we're going to have to get rid of our houses. You read deep into the article and they say, and this is all going to happen by 2030, 2040. Okay. So if you're waiting for that, you're going to be old. There's a little article too coming out of the presidential emergency powers that they're talking about, declaring a national emergency on housing. Now, right off the bat, that makes me nervous. Anytime the government gets involved in housing, I just don't like the interference. I'd rather see the market take over and do this, but I'll get into a little bit of details here. And I like their summary. They go, even if a housing emergency is declared, it will take years for affordability to return to normal, according to a September 2nd Redfin report. The report concluded that if home price growth remained at the current rates of 1.4% per year and mortgage rates fell to 5.5%, costs would return to 2018 affordability levels by 2030. If mortgage rates remain about 6.67%, it would take another 4 years to hit those levels. Now, remember, they're saying it would reach that affordability. Doesn't mean that we're going to go down to 2018 prices. Make sure you understand the difference. They're assuming that home prices will continue to go up, but wages will continue to increase. And a combination of mortgage rates coming down, it increases the affordability. So don't misunderstand as I read this that says 2018 is going to be a period where home prices are going to crash to that level. That's not what this article is saying. Redfin economists used 2018 as a baseline since it preceded the pandemic-era housing boom, and the mortgage payment income ratio at the time was 30%, a standard benchmark for housing affordability. So that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the benchmark. And the thing that bothers me about this emergency, there are some things I think that are okay. It's fine. They're going to ease regulation, going to make it faster for builders to build. But then you got to look at the legality and go, well, what can you do on the national level? Because most zoning is local. So you don't want Washington, D.C. dictating what's going to go on in your Scottsdale neighborhood. That's up to you in Scottsdale. It's up to you in Gilbert. So I just don't get the warm fuzzies when you start hearing chatter on a national level saying, well, we're going to help with regulation. I'm all for loosening up on regulation where they can. Also on lumber imports and material costs and labor costs. They want to start seeing what they can do to help that. What makes me nervous is when I see them say, and offer more incentives for buyers. No, we don't need that. Buyers have an incentive. They're ready to buy. They want a house. They just can't afford the payment. If you start throwing a bunch of incentives like down payment assistance or even buying down their rate, and you start spurring buying activity, you think prices are going to come down and affordability is going to get better? Not a chance. It's just going to get worse. I remember during 2021 and 2022, 2020 and 2021, the Biden administration was proposing these grants, down payment assistance grants of about $18,000. I was screaming from the rooftop saying, please don't. Because if you do that, you're going to lower supply. We only had 4,800 homes on the market. You start giving out money like candy, you're not going to help that low supply of 4,800. You're going to throw it down to about 3,000. You think houses are expensive today? Just wait. And that's what happens when you start putting in programs and changing the natural market-driven forces of financing. Let that happen on its own. Don't get the government involved. I remember there was a gentleman, he was a HUD secretary. It was Jack Kemp. He had a famous quote, and he said, if it wasn't for the government in housing, you wouldn't need the government in housing. So I'm a real advocate of just kind of, stay away. Look, I'm okay. Give me some lower lumber prices. That's great. That has to be done with trade agreements, trade deals. I'm up at the Pacific Northwest. You can see we got lots of lumber behind us, but Canada subsidizes their lumber industry, and they pretty much put all the mills out of business down in Washington and Oregon. That's why we're kind of having a little tariff sniff with them. But if we can get some relief there, that would be great. But I wouldn't hang my hat on it because all of that is just chatter right now. And it says it's going to take a couple of years for that to even show up in affordability. And it may not show up in affordability only if they start building more homes. And we're already building more homes now, and buyers are starting to offer more incentives, lower prices. So you can see it happening already. So if it's already going in that direction, please, Washington, D.C., don't jump in and mess it up. Hey, if you want a personalized market report, I know I showed you some details here on the supply index and different cities like Fountain Hills and Gilbert. There's a QR code up above here that you can use if you're watching this on TV, or you can use the link down below and request a zip code report. I've been sending out about 100 of those already, and you'll get all this detail that you want. You can also put in there anything specific you want to know. Some people want to know the foreclosure activity in their city or in the state. So whatever you request and you put in there, I'll get it out to you as soon as I can. It's about 8 pages. It's a decent read, and you can also, once you get that report, you're going to have a system kind of send you a text message, and you can reply stop, and you'll no longer get those text messages. Hang on to that email when you get that report so that you can email me back and say, Rick, can you update this for October? And then I'll send you another report. So again, that's in the link below or the QR code up above. And as usual, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at rick@rickhelps.com. Take care.